Hi, Chapel Ridge. I'm going to read because I want it to stay under 5 minutes, and I could talk the whole service. So I was going to share a story, a recent story, but as I looked at my sermon notes and saw the title, Wrestling with God in the Suffering, I couldn't easily share what was happening recently without telling you about my previous wrestling match with God. Right from the first chapter, I can so relate to Habakkuk. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? It brought me back to a major crisis when I was facing evil and injustice daily. During that season, I didn't question or blame God. I trusted him and believed that he would use it all for my good and the good of others. And one day I found myself experiencing one of my worst nightmares. And then another one came hard and fast. Within 5 days, 3 worst nightmare scenarios. The last one put me over the edge. The sheer evil of it was too much to bear, as was the injustice of it all. Although I hadn't questioned God or been angry with God, I was now furious with him and felt like he had been lying to me. God had been my everything. Now I found myself too angry to be with him or to trust him at all. I spent 9 months wrestling with God. Every day I would confront him saying things like, "You said this and you said that." I would go on rants and quote scripture and ask, "God, were you lying when you said this?" All day long I would remind God of his words. On my worst days, I would pound my spiritual fist on his chest until I was too exhausted to continue. When I was done, he would hold me in his arms quietly. It was devastating not to go to the Lord about things. By habit, whether something good or bad happened, I would automatically go to him, but then remember that I was angry at him, and so I would turn away. God never left my side. No matter how angry I was at him, he was always faithful. He gave me 2 close friends that I could be honest with, and Pastor Luke too. 3 people that didn't judge me or throw religious platitudes at me. There were certainly those who didn't think I had any right to question God, but I think Habakkuk paints a different picture for me. It was the longest 9 months of my life. Going through a crisis is hard enough with God by your side, but when you're mad at him, well, it's just unbearable. For 9 months, I kept coming to church when it was the last place I wanted to be. As angry as I was, I could not walk away from my faith. I felt like the Bible was lies, and I absolutely hated feeling that way because deep down I knew the truth. In an inner healing session, I said that hope felt abusive and that it felt like God had been gaslighting me for years. After everything I've been through, after feeling like I've been through hell and back and stuck in a horror movie, I can honestly say that this 9 months of being angry with God was the worst 9 months of my life. I don't know how people survive without him. And the thing is, I don't regret wrestling with him because when I came out of it, I was closer to the Lord than ever before. Gone are the religious rules and the pretense. In its place, nothing but raw, straightforward honesty about how I really feel. God already knows my heart anyways, so it's pointless to pretend. This brought a lot of healing and increased my trust in him. It also filled my heart with compassion and understanding for others that are suffering and mad at God. And that brings me to the last couple of months. I was going through some really hard things, and just when I was telling the Lord I could not take any more, devastation came to visit my heart again. I immediately fell in a pit of hopelessness, and the pain and grief was just too much to bear. I allowed myself to get depressed for a week. I found it hard to get out of bed, which is not like me at all. The grief was taken over fast, and I knew if I didn't do something quickly, it would be really hard to get out of it. I thought of the women I was called to serve and help, and for them, I could not allow myself to give up and quit. I had agreed to teach a faith art retreat online. My session was to be pre-recorded, and I didn't think I could stop crying long enough to record it. I was going to cancel it, but the Lord told me that some women were going through some really hard things and they needed to hear me. We figured we would get about 200 people for the retreat, but over 3,300 women and a few men signed up. I got on camera, raw and real, and told them how badly I wanted to quit. My session went live on May 18th, and the testimonies from it are still coming in daily. The impact was shocking to me, and I was just been overwhelmed by God's goodness. I can't believe I almost gave up and canceled. I'm so blessed by all that has come out of it, and to think I actually thought my session was lame when I recorded it. Clearly, God had other plans. The Lord really does use what is meant for evil for good. Hearts were healed and lives were changed because God knew people needed to hear my authentic, not put together at all, faith. My session was called Cultivate Faithfulness, and it is a reminder that no matter how much evil and injustice surrounds me, my God has always been faithful, and he always will be. And if anyone is going through something similar, I would love to pray for you, whether after church or just find me somewhere, communicate.